to first start just talking a little bit about kind of what you've already launched.
Sure.
And you started last year in the spring launching kind of the first tranche of satellites, Tranche 0, missile warning and tracking, and also data transport satellites. As of February, there's 27,
27
in orbit.
Right.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about kind of what you're seeing from those first satellites, how they're operating, how they're being integrated in demos, those types of things.
What we wanted to demonstrate on Tranche 0, the big questions on whether or not we could do proliferated constellations for this whole architecture. Number one, could we in fact do Link 16 from space? That's the biggest question, right? Because that is what we are predicating the ability to be able to get the tactical data directly to the warfighter without any impact to their user equipment. Link 16 from space had never been done before. There were some demonstrations that were supposed to fly ahead of us, but we ended up getting ahead of them. So we were the first one. So we were pretty nervous about that. We demonstrated that successfully. We demonstrated that with our Australian partners to show that we really collaborate with our allies. And we've talked about that. What we haven't really announced publicly, we had a little LinkedIn post on it, but just to make sure everyone's aware, not only did we go down to our allies with radios in Australia, but we also went down to a carrier. The US Navy operated that for us and did this demonstration in conjunction with some military testing with us. Went down to the carrier, and we also went down to an aircraft that was on the deck of the carrier at the time, which is actually more difficult than if it were actually flying. So we were pretty happy with that. We were able to check the box and say that Link 16 from space is a doable do, and now we have confidence. The next big poll that we needed to beat down was, can you in fact do the missile tracking mission from LEO? There was a lot of debate on that. MDA, to their credit, did an inordinate amount of work to demonstrate that you could do it in simulations. They did a lot of simulations that were very realistic using real flight hardware, but people still questioned it, right? You always question simulations because they thought that the clutter environment at LEO is so much different than what you experience when you're a GEO and you're staring over a space. They assumed that it would be extremely difficult to be able to pull out a dim missile in flight from LEO as you're moving, as you're screaming across. We demonstrated that successfully. We've been able to detect a lot of different missile launches. We've been able to detect rocket launches. We were able to detect the Starship reentry. A lot of activity. We were able to form that on 2D tracks using the algorithms that MDA developed and show that yes, you could in fact do this in real time and pass those data up. So knock that poll down, demonstrate that.
I wanted to ask too a little bit about the missile warning, missile track demos that you referenced. I know MDA has talked about their HBTSS satellites tracking a hypersonic flight test.
Right.
Have the other SDA missile warning and tracking satellites conducted or been able to track a hypersonic test, or can you speak at all to?
So we've with our right now we have 8 of the tracking satellites up. The 4 SpaceX ones are operational. The 4 L3 Harris ones are still going through test and checkout. We actually expect to start collecting data with them this month. So with those 4 satellites on orbit, the 4 operational ones, you just don't have a lot of opportunities to to be overhead during tests. So all of the targets that I've mentioned that we've collected on have been targets of opportunity to date. The Starship reentry, as I mentioned. I can't really talk about the other missile launches that we've detected, but those were all targets of opportunity. We just happen to be overhead collecting. So because of the fact that we only have those 4 satellites operating, we're not easy to synchronize with those Missile Defense Agency tests. MDA has been very cooperative with us and tried to time their tests when we were overhead, but just due to different situations, primarily with weather forcing them either to the end or the beginning of a launch window where we didn't have visibility, we haven't been able to get coverage to date.